Welcome back. Now we have a motivation segment about to begin that, in fact, I've been looking forward to. Why? Not just because we have our guest, Toby Ali, here, but because this is a topic that has been a discussion for decades. Business is war. Business is war. And if you think about how war happens, what leads to it, and how it is either, in quote, won or lost, you'll understand what we're talking about. Toby Ali is a powerhouse in business and personal transformation. He's an international award-winning capacity development trainer and a revolutionary speaker. He is also, he's been equipping leaders to unlock their full potential with a track record of innovation and impact. Today, as I said already, we're talking about the fact that business is war. It's great to have you back in the studio, Toby.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so when people think of war, they think of destruction. They think of loud voices, opposing sides. They think of enemies. And when we like to think of business, we like to think of prosperity. We like to think of money, growth, private jets, exactly. So how does this even correlate? Where does the line begin to fade?
Okay, so it's interesting to note that one of the most common buzzwords that is used in business is strategy. And strategy is gotten from the Greek word that means strategy, which actually means the art of war of the general. So in essence, a lot of the concepts that we have in business is actually gotten from war. And whether you like it or not, there's a kind of mentality you must have that if you don't even understand that business itself involves similar tactics and ideologies of war, then you just go into business thinking all will be rosy, and at the end of the day, you become a casualty. So it's important for people to understand, and some of those concepts about war, which you must have in business, is what we want to be sharing this morning.
So, okay, so strategies for war. You think of the general who has his troops, has, placed them in strategic places.
Exactly.
Knows when he wants to strike, when to pull back.
Exactly.
How do we begin when it comes to adding those kind of strategies into our business?
So the first thing we need to understand is accept that business is war.
Okay.
There is a kind of mentality you must have in business. There's this guy I love, Sun Tzu. He's one of the, he's one of the greatest generals in war. Art of War is a book, any business person should read. And he says something. He says that a victorious warrior wins before battle, but a defeated warrior goes into battle hoping to win. Wow. So what that means is that the first thing you need in business is there is a sense of mentality you must have in business that will be like your greatest arsenal. For instance, if you watch all these our old Nigerian Hollywood Yoruba movies, you will notice that there is something that is the first thing you see in a warrior. You see a helmet. That helmet is a kind of mindset that you must have. So for instance, one of the first fundamental mindsets you must have in business is that life and the market is never against you. It is always for you. So if you don't get into business with that understanding, if you always think that anytime anything is going wrong, there is something always fighting you, you have already lost even before you entered. Another important mentality to have is this. So you would have seen the stories, especially if you're a Christian, you'd have heard the stories about, David and Goliath. You'd have heard the stories about the spies. So let me even start with the spies. You see, there were 12 guys who went to a particular place. So picture that promised land as your market share in business. Maybe it's in telecommunications. Maybe it's in OEMs or whatever it is. Maybe it's in investment, right? And they saw giants. They said it was a land flowing with milk and honey, and they saw giants. Some people saw giants and said, we are not able to win. Some people saw it and saw it as an opportunity. Now, the best mindset to have is the land must really be flowing with milk and honey for it to be able to feed and breed giants. So it means that land has enough space for me to be able to make whatever I want to make. So if you are in an industry that you find yourself where you see there are big giants in that industry, the first mentality you need to have is that the fact that that industry could create those giants, it means there's enough room for me. So if you enter that industry with, oh, these ones are too big, I can't win. Even before you have started the business, you have already failed. So it's a very strong mentality that you must have in business, because the truth is you are going to fight. you are going to fight for market share. You are going to fight for customers.
Case in point now, there are two giant cola brands that are known to sell best in traffic. And then suddenly, there was this other cola brand that just came with a bigger size bottle and somehow took about 30% of the market share from both of them.
Definitely.
For some reason, they just didn't feel intimidated by the Goliath, so to speak. So, but nobody ever saw them coming because they looked like a small David, so to speak.
Exactly.
If you're using that particular analogy.
Exactly. So let's even touch on that.
Yes.
We could use this analogy. So David saw Goliath, right?
Yes.
Now, one of the things people don't realize is that the bigger the giant, the bigger the weakness. Where was the weakness? The head. Right? Everywhere was covered, but the head was not covered because there is something about giants, there's something about people in market share. You also notice that Goliath was a bit sluggish.
Yes.
So one of the things that you must do if you enter an industry where you are trying to fight for market share and they are giants is that one of the biggest weaknesses giants have is speed in adaptability. They don't have speed. So like that guy, like the brand you just mentioned, without mentioning their name, they saw that, oh, let's quickly do something different before these guys decide, because, I mean, they have boards, they have meetings. Before they do all that one, you have entered the market, you have taken the market share before you know it, because there is also a theory in business that the opportunity to defeat the enemy will always be provided by the enemy itself.
Interesting.
So when you look at the unique selling proposition, or you can find out the pain points of the customers of your competitors who are giants and quickly answer those, those pain points, you are going to win.
So there have been so many different cases like that from some of the bigger brands. There's a particular milk brand that always had a can, for instance.
Yes.
And they were canned milk for a very long time.
And say sachet is for
eventually the sachet market took over.
Very true.
And gave a particular key brand most of the market share.
Exactly.
Now, I'm not saying that it's a sustainable strategy because eventually everybody wised up. But at that point, they were able to take over the market.
True.
So now, what about sustainability? How do you, yes, you've been able to penetrate the market, but what is the next strategy to keep control?
So it's just like in battle, right? You don't have to always be on the offensive. You also have to be on the defensive. So the idea is that, okay, now that you've gotten market share, what are you going to do? Ensure that you give your customers the best service. Ensure that you also are aware of what your competitors are doing and you can do it better. Because there's also a saying by, that wise guy. He said, if you know your enemy and you know yourself, you need not worry about the outcome of 1,000 battles. You also have to keep evolving. If we even go back to, what we shared last week about FAIL, the acronym, you have to adapt, you have to innovate. So, and most importantly, the most important people in the marketplace are your customers. So as long as you are serving them well and you are meeting their needs, no matter how big the giants are roaring, they will always be loyal to you.
It's so interesting that we've been using a lot of analogies from historical books.
Yes.
The Jews are known to be some of the biggest, strongest business owners internationally. And of course, they have gone through quite a few wars.
A lot.
And won through different strategies.
True. And they're still fighting now.
They're still fighting till now. So it goes to show that the battle really doesn't end. It just continues. So
let me even tell you something interesting I found out about the Jews. I read this I got this quote, though I've added my own, right? So in that quote, it was like that, there was a news that there was 3 days the whole world is going to be submerged by water. Okay. So a rabbi, a Hindu priest was like, oh, prepare for the next incarnation. Now I added this, that a Mountain of Fire pastor said, let us bind every marine spirit, right? A Pentecostal pastor was like, oh, let's have a tongues meeting. Okay. But guess what the Jewish rabbi said? He said, we have 3 days to learn how to live underwater. Wow. That's a mentality.
Interesting.
That's a mentality. You see, one of the things beyond the fact that people say, oh, God is with these people, there is a mentality you must have that you can't lose. Life is never against me. I must always find a way. That's an important mentality to have in business.
Thank you so much, Toby Ali, for coming to talk to us today. And of course, if you think of business as war, the strategies to win wars might just apply for making your business come out on top. Let's hear your thoughts on social media. Use our hashtag WakeUpNigeria on TVC.